Hi, this is Matt with the Intergalactic Herald. Welcome to my Star Atlas Week in Review podcast. This is podcast number 134. Any articles or videos mentioned can be found on my website at intergalacticherald.com. Just look for Weekly Recap Newsletter number 182. So just a quick summary of the content. Pretty much the only thing that came out from Star Atlas ecosystem community this past week was the Star Atlas brew from the Star Atlas community team. Sorry about that. And that was pretty much it. I think actually the only other even content that was put out this past week was from the AFIA's newsletter from Star Atlas. So anyways, that's pretty much it. Just a couple of quick things I'm working on Star Atlas. Again, please do check out my website, intergalacticherald.com. Great resource for Star Atlas things like guides, directories, recaps, my Star Atlas Discord newsfeed. Again, you can check all that out at intergalacticherald.com. Do have a Star Atlas merch store at intergalacticgear.com, open for business, just a few products. Been working on other things within the Star Atlas projects that I'm working on, so not a lot of effort's been put into that for a while. I do have a merch survey. Love you fill that out if you haven't already. And then I am hoping to create a Star Atlas community of gamers, a non-guild for people who are not interested in joining Star Atlas guilds, but nevertheless want to hang out with some Star Atlas gamers. Please do check that out at intergalacticcoalition.com. So as I mentioned at the beginning, there was pretty much only one major Star Atlas event / content that was created this past week, and it was the community team's Atlas Brew. They did go through a little more of the Sage editor. They had a couple guests on the program. One of them was a team member who sounds like he's been working on that. Again, great intro to that and different things like that. They did put down a few notes of things that kind of came up from that, and I don't know if those had been mentioned before, or again, this is just the slow trickle of all the kind of development things related to C4, which again is where the Sage editor. Is it the Sage editor? Sage C4 editor? I'm not sure what the term is. Anyways, it's the tool the team built and is using to develop the new C4. So again, these are just random factoids that I hadn't heard before, or just was interesting to me, thinking for the future of how I want to play Star Atlas. So anyways, I thought they mentioned, and again, it seems like something that doesn't totally make sense, but they said there'd be no fuel costs within your region. And again, I'm not sure about that, and I don't know. I may have just heard it wrong, so I don't want to state that was definitive. There was also a lot of things mentioned that definitely the factions will have many unique things that aren't in each other faction, so that does encourage the trading that could be going on within the marketplace. So that was interesting. There was something that someone mentioned about drones, which is first I'd heard about that, but there were lots of things coming up in C4, like buildings on claim stakes and things like that. Just hadn't heard of drones you could craft from potentially 200 things. So anyways, another thing that was interesting, claim stakes have a limit of 2 steps, and partly I'm leaning toward thinking that might be my gameplay loop that I want to do within C4. But they mentioned that if you wanted to go higher, that's where crafting hubs come into play. And I was like, oh, no, that actually makes a lot of sense. You want to create only some things can be done in some places. So I thought that was actually interesting too. Also related to claim stakes, they did mention that the higher tiers will have some unique things that are only available at the higher tiers, but a lot of the lower tiers will be able to do most of the things. And so that does feel like very balanced things you would expect. If you have something more unique, you would be able to get something unique. So again, that all seemed to make sense. And then again, this idea that claim stakes might be kind of foundations, and then you go into crafting hab. So again, lots of configuration nuggets there, but again, it was all making sense. And again, that was it. It was great. Atlas Brew, nothing wrong with it. Just went by really fast and lots of information. Again, if you want to listen to the whole video recording, Star Atlas TV has that out. Normally I'd have an AI audio summary of it. I've been a little busy with family things and family things. So it's a little delayed on that. But again, you can listen to the whole thing on Star Atlas TV. Moving on to my next section, which is my thoughts on this State of Star Atlas based on this past week. Again, it was a very quiet week for content creators, though as of this weekend, Beyond the Horizon did put out our recap video. I haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, so hope to do that before the end of the day today. I'm actually recording this later. Again, do those family things. So if you're getting this and you wonder, I'm late, just busy this weekend with family stuff. So anyways, this Sage editor does to me sound very interesting. It's been something I do want to take a more look at. Just haven't had time with, end of summer, start of school, juggling too many things. But also not feeling much pressure because it sure starts to sound like that C4 is still a long way off, at least as far as the locked in things. In fact, just as a quick aside, I didn't put my talking points. They were mentioning a lot that, hey, this editor's changing, nothing's in it there. But if they're going to get close to the open release, or whatever they're calling it, the PTR, we'll just call it the beta, you'd actually feel like those things should be a little more solid. And again, if this is the same tool they're using internally and we just have access to it in real time, if those things are still in a state of flux, does that infer that they're not even close to putting out something in the beta? Because you would think those would be a little more dialed in, or else the beta's, not really going to provide any feedback. I don't know. Pure speculation. I don't know if I'm putting, maybe they have a copy of it. Who knows? Definitely, I think now that we're in September and the Stardust summer is over, it does feel kind of a little stable, but I don't mean stable in a negative sense, because again, you could go into the UE5 version, play the shooter. They did a ink airdrop for people who are playing, so that's moving along. We're getting lots of developer logs from forgetting names of people. Chipto, I think. Yeah, Tripto. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just go off of real people's names. I don't know why I can't get these nicknames. But anyways, he's been daily logging his development log on Twitter. So if you want to follow on, I do retweet those. But definitely lots of bite-size, but also interesting kind of inside developments of how that part's moving on. So again, the UE5 is moving on. Holosim obviously is something you can play every day, and it's moving along. Lots of posts, lots of updates in the Holosim channel on Discord. C4, again, the Atlas Brew is completely about that with the Sage Editor. So again, I chose the word stable as opposed to quiet or silent because it is. They're just moving forward with everything. So again, definitely the high of the Star Atlas summer and all the announcements and things like that. But again, wouldn't be shocking that, they're just working. Nothing exciting, but not anything. Yeah, things are still coming and stuff like that. And then the last thought I wrote down to myself was, again, C4 with, again, some of the things I mentioned from the Atlas Brew does seem to be very complex, but that truly is what I would expect from a full strategy game. Nothing wrong with Holosim, but you would want stuff to take longer and be harder and things like that. Again, I think we're seeing some of the connections with jump in quick and fast to something like Holosim or the shooter. But again, if you're interested in the strategy part, it would make sense that some of this was very, complicated. So that's pretty much it on my thoughts on the state of Star Atlas. Last little section I'll go over to is kind of my journey playing Star Atlas. Again, if you've been following along, still in Sage. Took a little bit break from moving supplies around and just stuck on mining. Part of that is related to why do a whole bunch of transactions when they're not getting recorded for the Zinc airdrop. 2, I noticed Solana's price really went up over the last week, so literally just wasting money because every one of those transactions now is some percentage higher than they were a week ago. So I feel like as of this moment, I am going to just stick with the mining loop. And the only reason I'm staying with that is it's single transactions and it's, actually giving me resources as opposed to moving. You're just moving around. There should be plenty of time to get all your resources out of the current version of Sage to do that. Still need to follow up and figure out how to find out if there is even a Mamba X still left to be crafted. But regardless, into the Zinc airdrop, again, crafting, all that stuff. Those are great ways to earn points or whatever we're calling it within the Zinc thing. So I think I'll just stick with that. Over the weekend, again, I've been saying I had family things, so I actually finished mining the required amount of silica, so I stopped that. Didn't have time to start up the next one, but repositioned my little miner guy at a different starbase, and now it's out mining nitrogen. So let that one go. It's a little higher number on my nitrogen than it was silica. It should probably take longer, but again, that kind of feels right. But basically, if I decided to wait on doing any more transport or even double up mining, because I'm not transporting, I don't need fuel, and my claim stakes are slowly building up those stockpiles of fuel and food and ammo. So I think I'll just keep that up. Again, just been working on other things too. So if in this case I was all mentioning that being stable related to things coming on development's great, but as far as the current starbase, stable is just, it's the same thing. And has been said many times by many content creators, it's really not for the small player. And I'm only justifying that my idea was if you're willing to pay $20 a month to pay for fees, then yeah, you can do some things. And again, that still holds true, but I met the Zinc new integration, excuse me, working together. Yeah, doesn't really make much sense to keep doing a whole bunch of transactions now when literally they're not moving anything forward in my gameplay. And again, if there's no MobX, then that really does change a whole lot of things. So anyway, so that's just what I've been working on. Go ahead and wrap up. Again, thanks for listening. Totally open to any guests on the podcast. You can reach out at my website, intergalacticherald.com. Just go to the contact sheet. Again, open to other content creators, any community people that just want to talk about the weekend review, and of course, any team members. Again, while you're there at intergalacticherald.com, do check out my other Star Atlas resources from my beginner's guide, a little bit outdated guilds directory, different content creators, builders, tools, and things like that. You can check out the recaps I put out, both my weekly newsletter and the AI summary of the Star Atlas community events, and then you can subscribe to my Star Atlas Discord news feed if you want to get announcements sent directly to your email. Also, please do check out my merch store at intergalacticgear.com. And if you're interested in joining a Star Atlas community of gamers who aren't members of guilds, please check out intergalacticcoalition.com. And that's it. Thanks very much for listening to the Week in Review Star Atlas. Hope you have a great week ahead. This is Matt with the Intergalactic Herald.